ready in 2 minutes.
Nice moves.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo. We're back here once again with another Titanfall builds video. Today we're going to be taking a look at two of my personal favorite builds that I've been running in Titanfall as of recently. That being the Pilot Saboteur build and the Titan Cannoneer build. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with the Pilot build this time around. Let's take a look at our primary weapon over here on the Saboteur. We're running the R101C carbine with a suppressor and an HCOG. Now, of course, the sight, as I've said in the past, is completely up to you if you're more comfortable with something like the ACOG or the optional red dot, or maybe even iron sights. Again, completely preference. The suppressor, though, is key because the Saboteur class is, of course, about sabotage. It's about remaining unseen, going behind enemy lines to do extra additional damage, and to just generally cause a little bit of chaos and mayhem to the enemy during your typical attrition, capture the flag, or even hardpoint game modes. Now, I do recommend the HCOG for the R101C because I find that it is the sort of perfect all-around sight. When you use something like the ACOG, actually, where you have all that optical zoom, it's going to be difficult to be effective at close range with that thing. You're going to kind of really cut back your speed, the speed at which you can engage targets. Plus, I mean, the R101C, insanely accurate rifle in this game. Super, super accurate. The distance that you can engage targets out to, even with the suppressor and the HCOG, it blows my mind every single time. If you really know how to make proper control, proper use of that rifle, it's going to be a very efficient tool at close all the way out to far range combat. Moving on to our anti-Titan weapon, though, we are once again running the mag launcher. You guys will notice that this is something I like for these close range builds. Once again, that 5-round, quick, in and out guerrilla warfare style damage is going to be a very fitting addition to this build. For our sidearm, though, we are running the RE45 auto pistol. I mean, basically, this is the ultimate sidearm when it comes to close quarters. Yes, the wingman is great, but it takes a much higher level of precision and skill to be effective with it. And the way you're going to be running the Saboteur class, you're going to want something that's quick and efficient every single time you go in. Not to mention, I found that the RE45 has the smallest sound signature out of the 3 pistols, again, helping you preserve that sense of silence and mystique as the Saboteur as you move around to flake enemy units. On the tactical ability, we are running the Cloak, of course. The Cloak is going to allow us once again to sneak behind enemy lines and make use of our actual Saboteur skills. As we move down the list here, we'll talk a little bit more about that. For Ordnance, we're running the Arc Mine. Once again, just another fine piece of equipment in the Saboteur's arsenal. This is great not only for attrition, just planting Arc Mines around key spots on the map to do damage to enemy Titans, but also on Hardpoint and CTF, where you may be defending an objective, and those arc mines are going to be really great to helping you put additional damage on, say, a flag carrier that just run for your flag, or someone who just entered a hardpoint area that you held down. I wouldn't recommend dumping both of them, while I do know that this can often lead to a kill on a pilot. I find that it's usually a hit and miss, and you're kind of just wasting a second arc mine that could be used elsewhere to either blind or damage another pilot or Titan. So make really good use of the arc mine. The more you play the game, the more you're going to understand some of the really heavy paths that a lot of players use. And of course, as the Saboteur, you're going to get a lot of practice on understanding the really sort of unorthodox routes and making use of parkour to navigate the map while again remaining unseen. When you play this class, try and play it without being spotted. Try and play it almost like a stealth class. Do your best to avoid the really common routes on the map. Find interesting ways to navigate the map using the parkour system to flank the enemy where they're least going to expect it. On the kit side of things, we're running the Stealth Kit, which is going to help us once again remain stealth and just, be unseen for longer periods of time. This is actually going to allow us to remove some of the exhaust from our jetpack. And we're also running the Ice Pick, which is going to allow us to hack enemy turrets as well as enemy specters. I believe it's around 50% faster. It's much, much quicker. Now, this is where the core of the Saboteur build comes into play. With this build, one of the things that I find is very interesting to do, especially in something like attrition, where a lot of it's just based on team deathmatch, is to actually make it a thing to go out of your way to hack the turrets on the map as well as the enemy specters. Now you may be saying to yourself, well, that's not a big deal. Number one, the turrets on the map actually deal out a lot more damage to Titans than you may believe. They're also a very, very distracting element. If you're in combat as a Titan and you have already another enemy Titan on you, and then all of a sudden you have this turret start blasting you, it's not really going to make the situation, you know, go well for you. It's going to be a lot of things happening at once, and unless you are very, very good with your situation awareness and understanding what you need to do in the situation to quickly eliminate that turret, you're going to be able to put a lot of damage on that enemy very quickly, very efficiently, and it's definitely going to help turn the tide of battle. Now, on the Spectre side of things, Spectres and Grunts, of course, lead to the enemy players being able to build up their Titans much quicker. It helps them cut down on Titan time. It also does attribute to the score and attrition. So by taking control of as many enemy Spectres as you can and turning them to your side, that's actually going to give you a ton of extra points, and it's also just a little bit of extra damage at the end of the day. You know, Spectres can actually overwhelm the enemy opponent, and it is a very, you know, efficient tactic, in my opinion, to run with a group of Spectres. It helps confuse the enemy sometimes when you're in a large group of them, and again, as the Saboteur, if you need to do close range combat in any manner, having a group of Spectres following you around is actually going to be very beneficial to the longevity of your health. Now, one thing I'm not sure on this, if anyone knows about this, is whether or not when you hacked an enemy Spectre, if the enemy team then kills that Spectre, do you in fact give them points then? Do you give them Spectre points? Does that count towards attrition points? Not sure on that, because of course if that was the case, it would kind of be a bad thing to hack enemy Spectres, which is why I don't think that really is the case. But let's go ahead and move on to the Titan side of this build, and that of course is going to be the Cannoneer.
You got it. Stand by for Titanfall.
So the Cannoneer, we go ahead and kick off the Cannoneer build with the Ogre chassis. This is going to be the second build that I'm actually showing you guys that does in fact use the Ogre chassis. Let me clarify my reasons for preferring the Ogre chassis in terms of staying alive, as I said in the previous video. I do understand the Strider can actually stay alive with a good pilot much longer than either the Atlas or the Ogre, but in terms of actually being in a combat situation, constantly taking and dealing damage, the Ogre really excels above the Atlas and the Strider. It has much larger health capacity. It also has much larger shields, and of course that shield core ability is really going to allow you to stay in the fight longer than ever. It's the brawler of the three Titans, and it is why I absolutely love making builds for it. So today we have the Cannoneer build. Of course, our primary weapon is going to be the 40mm cannon. I'd like to keep it on single fire. 3-round burst, to me, the trade-off isn't really a beneficial one. This gun does a ton of damage on single fire. It's extremely accurate, which means you can still engage pilots. It has a little bit of splash damage as well, once again making it even easier to engage pilots. It's also, as I said, ridiculously precise, allowing you to do lots of pinpoint damage on already wounded Titans, getting those critical hits. And with the extended magazine, you have to reload less. I mean, it's a win-win situation there. Now this class, in terms of the contrast between the Saboteur and this, I would say the Saboteur has a much larger difficulty curve in terms of learning how to use it efficiently, where the Cannoneer is sort of probably the most simplistic Titan build you can play. A lot of people run the 40mm cannon. Again, it was in the beta, it's something they're familiar with, and it's just a straightforward damage weapon. There's no charging it up, there's no learning when you need to fire it. It has a lot of rounds that you can put down target very quickly, even though it is semi-automatic. It's like having a, if I had to compare it to a pilot weapon, if the Kraber was somehow semi-automatic. It's like walking around with one of those. It's a very powerful class, the Cannoneer that I built here. And of course, the 40mm cannon in general is just an extremely powerful and extremely easy to use weapon. So let's talk a little bit about our tactical ability and our ordnance, because these two are something that I like to use together, actually, you know. Put them together and you have like this awesome burst damage class. So we have electric smoke with the cluster missile. Now, something that is really easy to do if you're on the sort of strong-minded side of things in a Titan battle, which is something you always want to try and do. Stay in control of the situation even when you start to lose health. Be on the outlook for openings to do a large amount of damage to the enemy Titan and sort of turn the tide. Electric smoke and the cluster missile are two great ways, though, to really cause confusion to an enemy Titan and make them think that they're actually taking a lot more damage than they probably are. Don't get me wrong, electric smoke and the cluster missile can do a ton of damage, but even if you can't deal direct damage with them, if you just catch just a little bit of that enemy Titan and start getting those hit markers, I can guarantee you that pilot's usually going to start to panic. Not many people actually look at the amount of damage that is being taken down when they're inside of their Titan. They merely recognize the fact that they are indeed taking damage, and then the panic sort of goes from there. The more hit markers they see, the quicker they think they're taking damage, and they start to lose control, and that's when you go in for the kill. So making that combination, electric smoke, especially in some of the close quarters maps, the really tight ones like Angel City, where you can really trap a Titan inside of the electric smoke, then lay down a cluster missile inside of that electric smoke, man, they're going to have a really bad day and you're going to walk away with some really quick and efficient Titan kills. This build is also really good at engaging multiple Titans. That's why I am also running it with the fast autoloader. That fast autoloader is going to allow you to bring up the cluster missile ordnance over and over again in combat. And of course, staying alive inside of the Ogre is much easier, so you're going to be able to be in some really long-term engagements with multiple Titans at times, making use of the AoE effects of both the electric smoke as well as the cluster missile to turn the tide of battle for yourself, or however you say that ridiculous saying. Lastly though, we have the Big Punch. Now, this is really a slot that I would say is completely up to you. If you want to run something different, go right ahead. I enjoy the Big Punch because it's a great way of getting Titans off you. You have certain people who play Titans in a multi-Titan battle situation who will just get in your face and continue to mash. Now, it doesn't often do damage, but it can get irritating and it can make it difficult to engage them or any other Titans in the area. So punching them out of the way is a great way to get the situation back under your control. And of course, it's always really fun at the end of matches when you may have enemy Titans defending or even attacking the dropship to try and punch one of them right off the edge. Always a bit of good fun to be had there. That's going to do it for this episode of my Titanfall builds, guys. That was a look at the Saboteur pilot loadout and the Cannoneer Titan loadout. Let me know if you give them a try when you play Titanfall. Let me know what you think of them. Again, one is a little bit more difficult. I would say the Saboteur, if you follow what I said there and really try and make use of that class, is a stealth type class. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. And the Cannoneer, of course, is probably one of the best entry-level Titan loadouts that I was able to come up with. The 40mm cannon is just a absolute tower of power. Lastly, guys, let me know what Titanfall builds you have been running inside of your Titanfall. Let me know in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys what you've been enjoying the most, and I'll see you in the next one.